On Saturday, May 23, Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social that the agreement between the U.S. and Iran is mostly agreed upon and will be announced soon. Sources from the Washington Times clarified that the draft has been approved by key negotiators. These are Vance, Vitkov, Kushner from Washington's side, and the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Kalibov, from Tehran's side. The document has been sent for final approval to the leaders of both countries. The announcement was expected by the end of Sunday, but on Sunday morning, Trump wrote something a bit different on the same Truth Social. The negotiations are proceeding in an orderly and constructive manner. And I asked my representatives not to rush. Time is on our side. So he's clearly indicating that the Iranian side is stalling. And he added that the relationship between the U.S. and Iran is becoming much more professional and productive. At the same time, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, during his visit to India, told journalists that significant progress has been made, but it is not final. In 24 hours, the deal come together, become mostly agreed upon, be sent out for signatures, and slow down again. And yet, both sides and dozens of observers around the world continue to talk about the same coming peace. To understand what all this means, you really need to, well, let's go back to the beginning. Although, of course, you all know the beginning. But still, let's lay out the framework. How did it all start? On February 28, 1926, the United States and Israel carried out a joint operation called Operation Epic Fury. During the strikes, Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed. Key military facilities of the regime were destroyed. Iran responded with massive missile and drone strikes against Israel and American bases in the Middle East and closed the Hormuz Strait, through which about 1/5 of the world's oil passes. Global markets reacted instantly, as they say. Gasoline prices in the U.S. skyrocketed. Prices for gas and dozens of related products followed suit. Global trade started to wobble. Every day the strait remained closed added to the political costs for the White House, an amount no one wanted to calculate. Trump initially demanded unconditional surrender, setting strict deadlines. March 21, then March 23, then April 7, threatening to destroy Iranian power plants and bridges. 2 hours before the final deadline, he announced a 2-week ceasefire. Iranian state television immediately called this a humiliating retreat by Trump. Okay. Trump himself declared a complete and unconditional victory. Both were describing the same event, and both were right on their own terms. Since then, there have been 12 weeks of the so-called ceasefire, which has been in effect since April 7. The ceasefire has been violated by both sides. The negotiations were conducted with the continuous cooperation and mediation of the Pakistani Army commander, Asim Munir. That is, Munir flew out of Tehran late Saturday evening after another round of consultations with the Iranian leadership. Looming over all this is the shadow of one document. In 2015, Obama signed an agreement with Iran that limited the Iranian nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions. In 2018, Trump withdrew from this agreement. Today, the same Trump is demanding much deeper concessions from Tehran than those Iran agreed to 10 years ago. Well, before Iran was bombed. Iran remembers both the withdrawal from the agreement and today's war. Iranian Foreign Ministry Representative Ismail Baghai told Iran's state news agency last week, I think, that the differences between the positions of the U.S. and Iran are narrowing. And he immediately added, Tehran is being cautious because it has been attacked twice in the past year during nuclear negotiations. Someone attacked twice in negotiations won't agree to what a newcomer would. This can't be ignored anymore. On the other hand, they were bombed because it became clear that they were deliberately dragging out the negotiations, not wanting to negotiate. So they say, there were negotiations, and we say, no, there were no negotiations. You were deceiving us. Well, now let's see what happens next. What does each side need? A deal, like any political deal, is based not on beliefs, but on needs. Here's what the United States needs to close the Iran issue before the midterm elections in November 2026. Is it cynical? Yes. The logic is simple and invisible only to those who don't want to see it. An open Strait of Hormuz means oil. Oil means prices, gas prices, and voters' moods. Plus, well, the Dow Jones, plus the headline, Trump won, and it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how he won. The president doesn't need a legally flawless deal. I've been saying this, gentlemen, for the past month. I'm saying it in these very words. He needs an announcement that can be repeated until November. Is that cynical? Yes. Iran needs something else. Lifting of sanctions, unfreezing of assets, an end to the naval blockade of ports. The U.S. has been doing this for over a month now, right? They've been blocking for more than a month already. They're blocking Iranian ports. And Trump clarified on Sunday that the blockade will remain fully in force until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed. They already know very well that one person says yes and then another says no, the one who actually has more muscle. The regime survived. A new supreme leader has been appointed. But the country is facing an economic collapse, that's how I would put it. Iran's Ministry of Finance can't delay any longer. Tehran also understands that the clock is ticking against them. Washington is doing its thing. They're fully exploiting that calculus too. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. On Sunday evening, he told state television that Iran is ready to achieve peace, and we are not seeking nuclear weapons. They say this every day, but at the same time. The Embassy of Iran in India. On the same day, Rubio responded on social media that Tehran has an inalienable right to nuclear technology. Well, to assure the world of one thing and confirm the right to the opposite. At the same time, that's impressive. Well, the theater has its own rules too, right, gentlemen? If you strip away the theatrics, a framework agreement for 60 days becomes apparent. This isn't the final agreement. It can be extended further. This is a pause during which the details will be negotiated. Iran calls this a framework. 30 to 60 days. That is, they say up to 60 days, and we say 60 with the idea that we can extend it. Trump will call this a historic deal. According to Access, the agreement extends the current ceasefire for the same 60 days. What starts happening during this time? The Strait of Hormuz must reopen. Iran must start selling oil, not completely freely. I'll explain now. And negotiations on the nuclear program must take place. So, what is known about the substance so far? The Strait of Hormuz is gradually opening as the American blockade is being lifted. It's completely unclear what "as the American blockade is being lifted" means. Is there a blockade or not? Or is the blockade in place for 23 hours a day? It's unclear. It's not a gesture with the same name, it's a dance, step by step, to a mutual count. They've just opened up a little bit. And did we miss a little bit or what? It's completely unclear. According to experts, what is an expert? An expert is a person who started getting published in some publication, right? Or they gave him a chance to come out and say something. Immediately, he became an expert. Restoring maritime shipping and returning prices to pre-war levels will take time. No, it won't take long. So a few weeks, they say. Iran is allowed to sell oil through sanctions exemptions. So we, America, will tell Iran who they can sell oil to and who they can't. And at the same time, we'll talk to China. Want some oil? Then give us this in return, right? Then we'll allow Iran to sell oil specifically to you and not to someone else. I mean, it's really strange. It's not the lifting of sanctions. No. Specifically, these are exemptions that Washington can grant or revoke. Complete lifting of sanctions. So does that mean they can fire at ships or maybe not? I don't understand anything. Complete lifting of sanctions and unfreezing of Iranian assets will be discussed during the 6-day negotiation window. So guys, let's do something like that for a bit, but in reality, we'll just keep negotiating about it. So they're moving into an uncertain future, as a result of which something might happen, or it might not happen at all. I'm not trying to take this to the point of absurdity, so to speak. I'm trying to show you that they haven't agreed on anything. But actually, the most important thing has happened. I'll explain now. So, in all this nonsense, there is an absolute win, a clear benefit. Right now, it doesn't really matter who benefits. There is an upside, believe me. I'll get to that now. Yes, the deal includes ending the war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Two officials who are involved in the negotiations said this. And most importantly, the main reason for the war in the first place is Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. According to the IAEA, Iran has 449 point something, I think. Yes, kilograms of uranium. And enriched up to 60%. Although I've told you many times they've already found some traces, what they call 80%. But that's not important. For now, we know about 449 point something kilograms of uranium enriched up to 60%. That's a short technical step to weapons grade, 90%. So these 449 point something kilograms are material proof of how close Iran has come to nuclear weapons. Under the terms of the draft agreement, Iran agrees to give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Sounds historic. But inside the document, things get even more interesting. One of the officials who personally participated in the negotiations explained to AP exactly how Iran is parting with this uranium. So, Iran. It will be agreed upon during this 60-day window, but it is assumed that part of the uranium will be diluted. Okay, part of it will be handed over to a third party. Russia has already offered to take it, so the uranium doesn't disappear. The uranium is being moved, part of it as diluted material, part of it to Russia, to a country that has made it absolutely clear over the past 2 years whose side it is on. So, ask any nuclear engineer how long it takes to go back from 20 or 5% to 60 to go back, right? And you'll get an answer that won't reassure any voter, not in any state. Who reads the headline, "Trump destroyed the Iranian nuclear program"? This is, of course, the most painful point for those in Washington who decided to read the terms of the deal to the end. A split within their own ranks. The main Republican senator on defense policy, Roger Wicker, stated, agreeing to a 60-day truce with Iran would mean that everything our military has achieved would be in vain. Ted Cruz wrote on X, if the result of all this is an Iranian regime still led by Islamists chanting "Death to America," receiving billions of dollars, able to enrich uranium and develop nuclear weapons, and effectively controlling the Hormuz Strait, then such an outcome would be a catastrophic mistake. Lindsey Graham supported this. Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, said on CNN Sunday morning, 11 weeks ago, Minister of War Hegseth and the Department of Defense told us that Iran's defenses had been destroyed and that obtaining nuclear material from Iran was only a matter of time. Now we are discussing a situation in which the nuclear material remains in Iran. How does all this add up? But this is not the voice of the opposition, gentlemen, but the voice of the Republicans on the air. On sympathetic channels, and CNN too, at the moment when Trump claims victory, they see the same thing that any attentive observer sees. Between destroyed 11 weeks ago and leaving today, there's a gap that, well, can only be papered over politically with headlines. Israel. Today, Israel was officially excluded from negotiations. Well, officially. According to the New York Times, a few weeks after the joint strikes on Iran, Israel was simply removed from the decision-making center in Washington. Republican senators have already called the terms a nightmare for Israel. The Israeli side states that the deal is extremely problematic. The main complaint is that Iranian ballistic missiles and Iran's proxy network are excluded from the negotiations. In other words, the very threats for which Israel actually went to war in the first place. Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on Sunday that President Trump and I agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate the nuclear threat. And he emphasized that Trump confirmed Israel's right to defend itself on any front, including Lebanon, to defend itself. The Minister of Science, that is Gila Gamliel from Likud, a member of the National Security Cabinet, in other words, a serious figure in Israel, she told Army Radio, Israel is taking a position. Let's wait and see. Absolutely right. All of this is pure, polished political theater. Why? Netanyahu is not a naive person. He understands Washington's arithmetic perfectly well. Until November 2026, not a word. He needs to show his own people that he disagrees. The war was declared for specific security goals, and explaining to the voters why these goals haven't been achieved is politically very uncomfortable. That's why Israel is publicly dissatisfied. Meanwhile, it still operates under the agreement with Washington. In fact, Israel got what mattered most. The Iranian regime is drained, no question about it. Khamenei is dead. The nuclear program has been pushed back by at least several years. And what will happen next? And that's a completely different question. But right now, it's extremely problematic to speculate. The only politically correct position for Jerusalem is the war ending or not ending? The deal includes a clause about ending the war between Israel and Hezbollah. This clause is particularly interesting because the war in question has formally already ended. On April 17, a fragile ceasefire, let's call it that, came into effect with U.S. mediation. Since then, Hezbollah has been violating the ceasefire every day, launching drones and rockets at Israeli forces and at northern Israel. And Israel strikes targets throughout Lebanon, and its forces still remain largely in the south of Lebanon. According to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, more than 3,000 people have been killed in the current round. According to Netanyahu, 22 Israeli soldiers and 1 contractor have been killed in southern Lebanon, and 2 civilians have died in northern Israel. Hezbollah has formally agreed to a ceasefire, but in reality it continues the war. The Lebanese government is completely unable to disarm it. Israeli officials are openly concerned that Lebanon is unable to do anything about Hezbollah. Iran is financing it, and the deal with Tehran officially means ending a war that is already officially over, but in reality it goes on every day. In other words, the deal with Tehran includes a promise from Tehran to stop funding something that Tehran publicly claims it doesn't fund anyway, and after the deal it will continue doing exactly what it is doing now. In this sense, the section of the agreement about Hezbollah is almost a perfect example of what is happening throughout the entire document. Well, something like this. Watch my left hand. I won't use my right, but I'll still do what I want. The parties agree on what is generally true anyway, and call it a historic breakthrough. What is it really? If you remove all the embellishments from the text, what remains is a simple description. It's a pause presented as a victory. Well, in the circus, a man jumps out, spreads his arms, and shouts, "Intermission." Let's call this a political intermission. Trump gets what he needs. Until November 2026. A war brought to a close, an open strait, cheaper oil, and headlines about triumph. After the midterm elections, he'll have a completely free hand. If Iran violates the terms, and the terms will be violated, well, gentlemen, it's inevitable, not just 99%, but 100%, because the framework agreement leaves plenty of room for interpretation in any convenient way. That's why Trump can return to the topic at any moment saying, they're like this, like that, and so on, to the end. Well, I don't know, like since 1927, not a single Republican is losing anything. The next big elections are far away. Iran will get what it needs, the opportunity to sell oil, but actually through exemptions. The blockade of the ports is ending, 60 days during which the regime will have time to plug the gaps. They'll regroup their proxy network there, rewrite the nuclear program to meet new restrictions, and most importantly, save face with their population. That's key. We'll discuss that now. And say, we stood up against the greatest military machine in the world. Probably by their own internal logic, they're right. European alliances and the United Kingdom are already officially welcoming the progress. They need oil. They need stability. They need someone to take this issue off the agenda. That's what they need. They applaud any agreement that has the word peace in its title. De-escalation. Whoever's right is the one you hear from on all sides. Everyone and no one. Markets react to the word deal. Voters react to the word peace. Everything else is for analysts whom no one listens to. Well, and for the archives, which might be opened in 30 years. What about today? And now let's take off the cynic's hat. Here's what we say. Come on, Diane, let's wear a different hat. now the analyst's hat. The cynic is always right about the mechanics in any political scenario, and wrong about the scale. In the 12 weeks between Operation Epic Fury and today, while we haven't talked about the details, something happened that few people would have bet on back in February: an armed conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran. A conflict in which missiles were flying at American bases. The main oil route in the world was being shut down. It moved from the stage of exchanging strikes to the stage of exchanging statements. This stage is different, and gentlemen, in the second stage, people don't die. Every day without war means tens of thousands of people staying alive. Well, as we always say in Ukraine, every month about 20 to 30,000 people die on the Ukrainian side. Tens of thousands of people who keep going to work, to school, to the synagogue, to the mosque. In Tehran, in Tel Aviv, in Beirut, in Haifa, these are engineers who are not lying under the rubble, children who didn't end up in a bomb shelter for the third time this week, and mothers who are sleeping at night today instead of pressing their ear to the radio. The drop in oil prices, which will be caused by global markets in the coming weeks, is not a victory for Trump and not a triumph for Tehran. It means gas in Arizona, Illinois, and California will be dollars cheaper at the pump than it is right now. This is exactly that quiet layer of reality that doesn't make it into the headlines. But why? Because you can't dramatize it. The Iranian people. And now let's talk about another component, incredibly important, maybe not today, but tomorrow. In Iran, a country with one of the most educated and freedom-hungry youth populations in the world, the regime emerged from this war drained and weakened. The economy is on the brink. This does not mean the regime will fall tomorrow. This means that Iranian society, millions of students, engineers, artists, programmers, who have spent the last 46 years living in a version of their country that isn't their own, the space has become much wider than it was on January 1st. History teaches us one strange thing. Regimes that lose a war, formally or informally, rarely survive the next 5 years in the same configuration. And the Ayatollahs understand this, and so does the Iranian people. Is there one part of this whole deal? If it turns out to be truly historic, it might not be the one that's making headlines right now, but the one where Iranian youth who have something their parents' generation didn't have, the internet, education, direct access to the world, they'll get a little more time and breathing room to write the history of their own country. We know a simple thing that's hard to believe when reading the daily reports. People on any continent, in any system, under any flag. They want to live. They want their children to go to school. They want a full fridge and to listen to music in the evening. Different kinds of music, but it doesn't matter which. Because they listen to music without flinching at the sound above the rooftops, and that's what matters. Who wants that? An Iranian mother in Isfahan wants that. An Israeli mom in Sderot. An American mom in Bakersfield. No deals, no political theater, no midterm elections will erase this simple universal question, and every agreement, even an incomplete one, even a temporary one, even one made up of wording that will have to be rewritten tomorrow, pushes the war back a little further. And every day without war is a victory, which neither Trump nor the Ayatollahs nor any Senate can claim. Life claims it. And tomorrow, something might happen. Maybe, as Hoja Nasreddin said, either the emperor will die or my donkey will die. Maybe, for the sake of this quiet, ineffective, unannounced victory, it's worth putting up with political theater, loud headlines, and awkward compromises from time to time. Maybe between 2 of Trump's announcements and 3 senators' comments, exactly what was worth keeping our eyes open for is happening. History, after all, is not written by those who shout, not by those who shout the loudest. History is written by those who get up tomorrow morning and go on living. Gentlemen, let me sum up everything I've said. We in America need a breather. As for Israel, I understand that they will be dissatisfied and say, "The Americans again, the Americans again." But let them consider that we have eliminated the immediate danger. For the next 35 years, we've eliminated it. Will they recover? Of course they will, yes. Think about the fact that if we continue now, we will lose this election, and that means you will lose too. If not Israel, God forbid, then there will be a lot of people killed, wounded, and crippled because of what will happen later if Trump fails to do what he is trying to do with those same Abraham Accords. Just think about that. Every day that Trump is in power, every day that Trump is in the White House, every day that he has a free hand. I mean, Congress, the Senate, right? Every day is better for Americans, better for Israelis, and better for all those people who don't want any damn collectivism. Whether it's Muslim, whether it's socialist, any kind, we just don't want it. Fascist, communist, it doesn't matter, we don't want it. And actually, the only thing is, not today. Tomorrow there will be someone else, and something different. But the only thing we have, the lever that we now have, well, there's something written on the lever. Donald J. Trump. Gentlemen, that's why everything we can do to help him succeed, to make sure no one puts obstacles in his way or that those obstacles don't stop him from moving forward, all of that should be removed, swept away. Because I just can't imagine anyone who could do it better than him, or faster than him. And not just with tomorrow in mind, but with a very long-term perspective. For the sake of our children's lives, for our own lives too. Yes, I'm not a communist who says, forget about today. The main thing is tomorrow. No, the main thing is today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. That's it. That's the most important thing. And that's why, as they say, let's drink to the health of Donald J. Trump. Thank God he came along. Until next time.